Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another All49ers Roundtable. I'm Grant Cohn. That's Jack Hammer and the newest, or one of the newest, I'm losing track, writers at All49ers, SI, Rob Schuh. You've seen him on my channel before, but this is his first time in the All49ers Roundtable. We'll see how he does. I mean, I can't even get words out of my mouth, so he's doing better than me already. Rob, how are you?
Appreciate you having me on, Grant.
Of course, my pleasure. So there is news. It's about Fred Warner. I've been saying all offseason, like, man, he really shouldn't get step foot on a field without a new deal. Is this going to happen before OTAs? Well, no. Doesn't seem like he's going to be getting a new deal before OTAs. Why do you think this is going? What's the holdup? What do you guys think? Jack, go ahead.
I don't know why. It's odd to me. You look at their salary cap number. They have about $17 million in cap space still at this point. That's only their top 51 though. But even when you start adding in beyond that, they should still have about 15. So it seems like they should have enough to be able to get a deal done with him, backloaded like they've been doing in the past with some of these other guys to get signed. So it doesn't really make sense to me what's taking so long here.
We think,
yeah.
Rob?
I agree, Jack. I'm pretty confused by the report that came out that we're not even in talks. I understand not necessarily finalizing it, and we can get into the reasons for that in a bit. But I'm confused at the fact that we haven't opened up the dialogue. And my hope is that, much like many other moves that the 49ers make, we're just not hearing about it, but something has, in fact, happened behind the scenes. Because it would be a colossal mistake. It's the leader of your defense. It's a heady guy, top of his position. To not sign him long term, I think would send the wrong message to the locker room.
Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up, Rob. Like, why haven't they even talked about it? Maybe they have, but the reports is that they haven't, and you're thinking they're not going to trade him like they traded DeForest Buckner. I don't think they will, but until they start negotiating, it makes you wonder. I read it a different way, though. It's like I keep comparing it to last year's situation with George Kittle. George Kittle wanted that sucker done. He did not want to have a lame duck year. He had every reason to get the money as soon as possible because he was going to be the highest paid tight end. There was no one competing with him on the free agent market. And he did become the highest paid tight end when he signed the deal. Warner's different. I think Warner, it might be in his interest to wait. Everyone knows that Darius Leonard's also a free agent. Well, not a free agent, but also in line for an extension. And whoever gets the extension first will probably end up getting a little less money than the other one. So maybe it's in Fred Warner's inch. Maybe Fred Warner hasn't approached the 49ers. Maybe he really isn't interested in talking until Darius Leonard signs a deal. Does that sound like a possibility? You're running a risk of getting hurt in the meantime.
That does make sense. The second, because you're gonna. If I'm Fred Warner, I'm an All-Pro. Darius Leonard's an All-Pro as well, so they're both All-Pro guys, and they're trying to get the same money as the All-Pro linebacker in Seattle. So I can understand maybe wanting to, feeling like, I'm going to hold out a little bit longer, and I'm going to let this guy kind of reset the market, and then I'm going to go above that because I'm better than him.
I think so.
Maybe that's what his thinking is.
I mean, if you were his agent, wouldn't you be saying, "Hey, there are some reasons to slow play this"?
I certainly would. I think when you look at it from Fred's perspective, that makes a lot of sense. And quite honestly, I hadn't really given it that type of thought. I was viewing it from the 49ers organization's perspective. And in that case, I think you want to get in there, get the deal done, and be the ones that reset the market first, because you're obviously going to have to beat that with the second deal that gets done here. But if I'm Fred Warner's agent, I certainly do want to be the second person to get the deal done so that we can then one-up Darius Leonard's contract and become the highest paid linebacker once again. It also could be, from the 49ers organization standpoint, if they have any inkling that Darius Leonard's contract will not reset the bar too high, it's entirely possible that they view that contract as setting a more appropriate bar to then judge Fred's contract by, if Fred's agent is coming in at an unhealthy number to begin with.
Yeah. So that's going to be very interesting. I was thinking that there would be some pressure from Fred Warner. Did you hear that? Was there echo?
No, it didn't come through on my end.
Sorry about that. I was thinking there'd be pressure from Fred Warner to get this done like there was from Kittle. Maybe he's like, you know what? Let's take our time on this one. Let's, Niners, I can play for a cheap rate the next year. Let's talk about this whenever Darius Leonard finishes signing his name to his extension. So let's talk about part 2 of this discussion. Should the Niners call up Fred Warner and be like, let's get this done now? I mean, from the Niners' perspective, should there be some urgency on their side?
I say yes wholeheartedly. I think that it sends the correct message to the locker room. I think that you get in there first and reestablish the deal in the likelihood that Darius Leonard's contract is going to reset the market. I think it always behooves you to be the first person to get the deal done when multiple players are set to reset a particular market for a position. You want to be that team that's ahead of the curve. It reminds me of the Goff and Wentz deals, both of which are now travesties. But at the time, it was great to be there first.
Yes.
Yeah. From the 49ers perspective, I think we were just kind of, based on what we were just talking about, it would make sense for them to want to go ahead and try to jump in front and get this deal done. I think we know where it's going to go. It's going to be right in that $19 to $20 million range based off of where the guy up in Seattle is at. So you kind of know the parameters, I think, and if they could get ahead of the game here, I think it would be better for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would go back to, I really think that you have to get this done for the fact that the DeForest Buckner trade didn't quite work out the way in which we all may have hoped. And I think it left people with a lot of questions. Oh, maybe I am the only. Oh, there we go.
Sorry, I was just featuring you for a second because Jack walked away. You got a little FaceTime.
No. My apologies for not realizing that I should have just grabbed the light there.
Jack had to do a little something. I had to ban someone in the Twitch section because he was just posting nothing but like 8,000 emojis at once. So we all had to multitask for a second, but we're listening. Rob, go ahead.
I saw that.
Yeah, he's out of
crazy
here.
in the comments.
He's
just going nuts.
Freaking out of here, man. Sorry.
Unbelievable. You got to handle business, Grant.
Yeah, exactly.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think that you really want to get in there and get this deal done because you want to send that message to the locker room. I think you traded away a core piece of the locker room, a key leader in the defense when you let DeForest Buckner, when you sent him over to the Colts. And I just think that now you need to solidify new defensive coordinator. You need that quarterback of the defense. You need to lock him down. So I would absolutely charge hard at getting that contract done soon.
Maybe they have. And Fred Warner is saying, guys, really, there's no urgency here. Maybe that's why the Niners are saying they haven't. It'd be kind of embarrassing to call up Fred Warner and say, all right, we're ready to give you that extension. And he's like, let's not talk this. Can we? I'm a little busy. We could maybe do next June was good for me. Maybe July. It's like, dang, thought we were going out. Really? All right. Well, you call me then. I don't know. It's a very interesting dynamic. I think Fred Warner he should feel very confident right now. He's in a very good spot. Maruna said 49ers did not hesitate to get Kittle deal done. So why should they treat Warner differently? Pay Warner now. Yeah, pay that man.
Pay that man his money.
Pay that man his money. All right, let's switch it up. That's all we're talking about Warner today. We want to talk about something else. The Niners technically have the second oldest 90-man roster in the league right now. Now, some of these guys will get cut. We'll have to recalibrate when it's down to 53. But right now, the Niners have the second oldest roster in the league after Houston, which is hilarious. I mean, the worst and oldest roster in the league. Good going, Houston. But the Niners are in an interesting position. They chose this. They brought back a lot of guys in their 30s who saw this is what they wanted to do. Should the fans, should the team be concerned about this particular roster construction? Jack.
I don't think there should necessarily be a concern about the construction. I think the bigger concern has to do with some of the guys that they brought back that have a history of injury. But when you look at it, the main reason that's kind of pushed them there is that they went out and they got a center that's 35 years old. They just, they went out and they re-signed a left tackle that's 33. They brought a bunch of their own veterans back who are aging. If you look at their starting secondary, the starting 5 guys that should be in their secondary, they're average 29 years old in the secondary as well. And Verrett's a guy who's almost never stayed healthy. So
I mean, that's one of the spots you want to be young at, right?
You would think so, yeah. For sure. I mean, even 29, I guess, it's not old in our terms, right? But in football terms, it's getting up there.
Well, real quick, the average age of the Niners roster is like 26 plus, and the average age of the youngest roster is like 24. So we're talking, it's all very close, but 29 is technically kind of old in football years. Sorry to keep
it is. No, it's okay, and it is. That's something that we talked about during free agency. If you remember, briefly, when they started signing, we mentioned how they got old really fast, and this chart came out and it kind of proved what we had been talking about.
One of the reasons I was kind of against the Trent Williams re-signing, even though he's fabulous, it's like he's 33, man. It's another one of these guys. Okay, what do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think actually in general, I would view this as a plus this year. I think that normally a team can't afford to keep so many veterans in a standard off season. I think that because of the COVID situation, we were able to bring a lot of guys back on 1-year deals that should have been paid higher market rates. I think in a normal offseason, many of those guys would have gotten multiple year deals and they probably would have left in free agency. I think that they tended to come back to the team they were familiar with that gave them the best shot at a 1-year successful season, setting themselves up for free agency yet again in 2022. And so I think that normally we wouldn't have been able to keep this all together. And I do think that it's skewed by several significantly older players. I am concerned on a couple of the long-term deals, because if you start to see regression towards the age at some point, now you're stuck with a ton of dead money. And the 49ers organization is just not one that really seems set up to handle that dead money, because we're up against the cap year in and year out trying to compete. And then, lastly, the point with Jack is a great one. The injury prone is a huge concern. I think that the term injury prone gets thrown around pretty loosely, and it's generally used to describe a myriad of reasons. And I think that in general, it is not applicable to all players. It's applicable to a smaller percentage. So there's only a couple of players that I'm concerned about, but there are several players within the same position groups that you would worry about. And now you're talking about depth and potentially rookies coming in and having to fill significant roles. So the age that Jack brings up, I think is the biggest question there. Sorry, not the age, the injury prone older players.
I mean, other teams have older rosters, like Baltimore has a pretty old roster, Buffalo, New England, Arizona. But I think the reason we're talking about it is because the Niners have, I'm not saying they have an injury prone roster. They just have a lot of injuries the last 8 years. It's just a pattern. And you factor in that and the fact that the Niners are now old. It's like, well, what could go wrong? Not to say that it will, but it seems like what they're doing is giving it one more shot. They don't want to be old, but it's a bunch of guys who've been with them. And they're giving it one more go. One way or another, I think this team's going to look a lot different in 2022. I mean, Trent Williams will still be here and some of these older guys, but I think a lot of them, who knows if Jason Verrett, Jimmy Ward, Jaquiski Tartt, a lot of these guys could be gone, and the Niners, they're going to have to reload eventually. Their starting quarterback's going to be 22 next year. They might be a lot younger in 20. This could be like the last hurrah for this particular iteration of the 49ers. What do you think?
I think that's spot on. I think that next year, absolutely, we will see some multi-year deals that we'll see our players moving on for multi-year deals and new players coming in trying to fill all those holes that we filled with 1-year deals this year.
Yeah, I think Rob hit on some really good points. I think you've got that older roster, which is going to help you out in 2021. Mm-hmm. And the 49ers have also done a pretty good job, though, I think, of stacking up some pieces behind them, so to give them some good depth moving forward. And I agree also with Rob. There's definitely some concern when you look at the Trent Williams deal and the Kyle Juszczyk deal. Those are tough deals for down the road. Eric Armstead's going to be the second highest paid 49er, or he might even be the highest paid 49er based on that salary cap hit in 2022. He's already the second highest cap hit this year. So it's going to only get tougher as the Kittle deal starts to hit. Next year, Jimmy Ward in 2022, Jimmy Ward's deal is going to max out, that contract that he re-signed. So there's going to be, right now, they don't have a whole lot of cap space for next season until they get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo.
Maybe that's another reason why contract negotiations haven't begun between Fred Warner and 49ers. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll move on. Real quick, I want to shout out all the people watching on YouTube, on Twitch. All of a sudden, there's a hearty community watching on Twitch and commenting. People probably watching on Twitter and Facebook, and millions watching across the world. Thank you very much. Really means a lot. This is a little interesting piece of information. I haven't talked about this on my channel. The Niners were going to trade for wide receiver Deshaun Hamilton. He was with them. They were going to trade for him. It was pretty much a done deal, or they had discussed it, they'd agreed upon it, and then he tore his ACL or something. Did I miss that? He tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Anyway,
practicing away from the facility, unfortunately, second Broncos player to go down.
So that didn't happen. But it's interesting that the Niners were about to do that. Why do you think the 49ers almost traded for Deshaun Hamilton?
I'll jump in first on this one because I'm interested to hear Jack's opinion on watching film, because I know that he is expert level on that as compared to my novice level in breaking down film. But he reminds me a bit of Kendrick Bourne. I mean, similar size, similar ability to catch the ball away from his body. Although, interestingly, coming out of college, a lot of the knocks against him were that he couldn't catch the ball away from his body, that he let a lot of them come through to his chest. But in his rookie year, he seemed to do a great job of really working on that. And the concern was drops in that rookie year. But so many of them seemed to be focus drops, which, if I remember correctly, was Kendrick's problem early on in his career. It wasn't drops where he just couldn't catch it. It was stop paying attention for a minute, was focused on something else, and lost sight of the ball and then dropped it. So I feel like there's a similarity there, and I almost wonder if the 49ers coaching staff or Wes Welker believe that that's a coachable trait, and they believe that they could have remedied that and therefore made him into what they wanted him to be. And then his route running reminded me a bit of Emmanuel Sanders when I see him gliding in and out of his breaks. But I'd be interested to hear Jack's take on that.
There's a lot of things. Rob has perfectly led into kind of the direction that I was going to take this, is that I also see a lot of Kendrick Bourne in him as well from the size and the ability standpoint. But you also got to remember in 2019, his offensive coordinator was Rich Scangarello, who is now back with the 49ers. So he has working knowledge of the receiver. So I think that's what was kind of leading and driving that signing or trade, excuse me.
Great point. There's always the Niners gravitate to players they know. Kyle, Scangarello, they know him. They know they can work with him. I do think there's a lot of similarities between him and Kendrick Bourne, just in terms of measurables, testing numbers, that kind of thing, the way he's used. It's clear. I mean, if you look at his scouting report coming out of college, he was labeled a big slot receiver. That's how the Niners used Kendrick Bourne. That's what the Niners don't have. It's what they want Jalen Hurd to be. But Jalen Hurd's like the Loch Ness Monster. Does he even exist? We're not really sure. So, yeah, they're looking for something in specific, and they don't have it quite settled yet. They do have someone else we're going to talk about in a minute, but it's clear that the Niners agree with all of their fans that they have a need for a number 3 receiver, and they almost got him. Almost got him. So another trade could be happening down the line. They have Mohamed Sanu, kind of fills that need, but like Sanu's a little old. I mean, he doesn't really have much left. Richie James is not a big slot receiver. Marqise Lee, we'll talk about him in a minute, but yeah.
Yeah, this felt to me like the one area that the 49ers failed to address and really did sort of a wing and a prayer approach of like, well, we've got a couple of solutions that may, like if Jalen Hurd is healthy, we're good there. Or if one of these older guys can come back and reclaim the form that they had, we're good there. We've got a journeyman that, if he needs to fill in for a bit, he can. It feels a lot to me like how we addressed the interior line scenario last offseason, and that didn't turn out so well, right? We attempted to rely on the health of someone who was coming back from injury that never made it back, right? And I think that if we're relying on Jalen Hurd, as much as I believe in him and his tough physical style, it's that same tough physical style that could get him injured after being back for 2 or 3 games. And to count on one of the older guys that's coming in to regain their form, again, I think it's possible, but it doesn't strike me as the type of plan that you bank on. You're hoping, but it doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, it's something that they need to fill out. And I think another thing too to think about is I think this offense is going to evolve a little bit this year, change, and so you might be seeing more of Grant's favorite 49er, Ross Dwelley, because they might be using a little bit more 2 tight end sets because they're running the ball more, depending on who the quarterback is. If Trey Lance actually does win the job, I think you're going to see more of a rushing attack, out of the shotgun and things like that, like you saw out of Kyle Shanahan in 2012 in Washington.
Yeah, I think that's going to be – I'm really hoping the Niners get Ross Dwelley involved because you don't have to have a 6'1", 205-pound wide. I think like Kyle Shanahan is so locked into like his 2019 team. He really feels like that 2019 was it. That is the formula to win a Super Bowl, and Jimmy messed it up. It's all his fault. But really, if they could just recreate that team as much as possible, not, don't fix what's not broken. So they have to have the 6'1", 205-pound wide receiver. Maybe it's Austin Watkins. Maybe it's Marqise Lee, although he's a little bit shorter. It could have been Deshaun Hamilton.
The only thing I would counter that with, Grant, is last offseason, the real attempts that we made to get in a second tight end, pass-catching tight end, when we did have the third wide receiver already locked up.
True.
And so I think Kyle sees it as various packages that he can take advantage of formations against defenses. And I do think that having that third wide receiver is essential so that you get the smaller defenders on the field. And if it's that big third wide receiver like Jalen Hurd, now you just run him over. So I think he does need that for his peace of mind to have that weapon in his arsenal.
Yeah. Parker Reno 97 wants to take it a little bit different direction. I think the Niners will be high bidders on Tyrann Mathieu or Brandon Scherff next year, considering they are leaders, and we will gain $22 million from Jimmy G. Have you guys thought about any way the Niners can use some of this money next year when Jimmy G's gone? Or Kyle, are you saying, Jack, that it's going to go to Eric Armstead and Jimmy Ward?
I think a little bit of it's going to be eaten up by Armstead and Ward, and it's going to get eaten up by the re-signing of Fred Warner. And then, we just addressed, I think, the guard position that Laken Tomlinson's probably going to be leaving open in the draft this last year. So I don't know if either of those guys are really guys that you'd want to see them bring in. I don't know how well Mathieu would actually fit with the 49ers scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that.
I believe James Betcher coached him, though. We don't really know what the Niners scheme is, Jack. It's a tough one. D'Amico.
True.
Yeah, I would say that we probably need a lot of that money to sign in-house. I mean, certainly you have the Bosa contract on the horizon. It's hard to believe that we're going to be looking to do that after this upcoming season. But, that's what happens when you miss a season. That third year creeps right up on you.
Terron's interesting because just for the same reason that the Niners were interested in Deshaun Hamilton, Nate Sudfeld, the personal connection. There is one between James Betcher and Tyrann Mathieu, so might put the Niners in play.
I think
that's a good point.
That seems like a good fit for one of the rangy safeties that would fit well within our scheme, our previous scheme, assuming that it remains constant.
I love Tyrann Mathieu. To me, he's everything Jimmy Ward is and more.
Yeah, I'm a big Ward fan, and I certainly believe him to be very capable, and also think that Tyrann is phenomenal as well.
All right, last topic. Marqise Lee. The Niners were going to trade for Deshaun Hamilton. He blew out his ACL. Marqise Lee finagled his way into a rookie tryout and made the team. I don't know if he'd be here if Deshaun Hamilton had 2 healthy knees, but he doesn't. Lee's here. Do you think that Lee will make this team? I think he has 3 catches since 2017.
I'm going to go ahead. I'll jump out first on this one. I'm going to say no, that he doesn't make the final team, just because he hasn't had that history, recent history. He's been down for a while. This one kind of just seems like a guy that's a veteran. They're going to take a flyer on him and see if he can make a comeback. But I don't expect him to actually make the final roster.
Yeah, I will give a yes if healthy. If healthy throughout the offseason, I believe he's capable of it. It was a gruesome knee injury that he suffered that caused him to miss the entirety of the 2018 season. I think he tore his ACL, PCL, and whatever the third tendon is there. Okay. It was brutal. And the fact that he's back looked good. I see him as a bit of a Jason Verrett. I mean, he was drafted in the 2nd round above Allen Robinson in the same draft as Allen Robinson by the Jaguars. In his one career season with, I believe, Blake Bortles at quarterback, had a productive season for a team that did not throw the ball a whole heck of a lot. So I think that there is the hope for him to round back. At least what form looks like. Whether he will round back into form is the if, because that's a gruesome injury. But the fact that he has gotten back to where he is, the fact that it is now 2 years removed because he opted out of the 2020 season, 3 years removed. He had 3 catches in that first season back and then re-injured the knee and then went back on injured reserve. Missed the season for COVID. The hope is with that much time away from the game that hopefully he's healthy, can come back and regain that form. That would be a great fit as that third wide receiver.
I think I'm with Rob here. I think if he stays healthy, he can make it. Just from that one little snapshot I had of him at rookie minicamp, the fact that he went to a rookie tryout, the fact that he's not given up at 29 with the last 4 years, the way they've gone, and the way that he snatched that ball away from a defensive back, you didn't see it in 7-on-7s. It looks like he has something to prove. Like he has a chip on his shoulder and he wants this, and he has talent. So I think, I don't know, Jalen Hurd, you better get your stuff together because Marqise Lee's coming. He's got something to prove like Jason Verrett did last year. So I'm going to say I do think he'll make the final roster. If he has any type of injury, no. If he pulls his hamstring, forget about it. He has to kick butt in training camp the whole way through and in preseason. But it's wide open. That number 3 receiver is wide open. That's what he is, a slot guy.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a scenario with Jason Verrett where the first year he was with us, he remained on the roster even though he got dinged up a couple of times. I don't think that's the case with Marqise Lee. I think if he gets dinged up, that wide receiver group is deep enough and close enough together that'll be enough to pack your bags and head on your way. But if he can stay healthy, there's some real talent there.
Real quick, how did Austin Watkins look at the mini camp?
Not good. Here's what I remember. Him going against Diamondor Lenore, he made Diamondor Lenore look like Jason Verrett. I mean, he had a tough time. The problem with Watkins, he had a tough time staying on his feet. He'd get locked up and press and start stumbling. And he fell a few times. So he doesn't look like Kendrick Bourne. He doesn't look like he has that same type of body control and quickness. He looks strong. He looks tough. But is every catch going to be a contested catch with him? I don't know. He couldn't win at the rookie tryout, so it's going to be even tougher when he's going against freaking Jason Verrett or real corners. I wasn't impressed. I mean, I think part of the reason that Jason Verrett got signed is because Austin Watkins didn't show anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Give me some hope, though. It wasn't an A.J. Jenkins type of a first practice, was it?
That's what I thought of. But look, the guy's an undrafted free agent. I mean,
yep.
A.J. Jenkins was a first-round pick. It was scandalous when he would fall and lose those one-on-one reps to undrafted free agents. Let's give Austin Watkins some time. I'm not writing him off yet. I wasn't impressed, and I think part of the reason that Marqise Lee is here is because he looked good compared to Austin Watkins and everyone else at that spot at that training camp.
Sure.
Yeah, it's also fair to assume that an undrafted free agent will benefit from a year on the team, that we really could see the best of Austin Watkins next year.
I feel like a lot of the Niners undrafted free agents really come into their own in year 2. Dwelly.
Breida.
Like Breida, exactly. Yeah. Dwelly. Yeah. So there's the Bourne. Yeah. And Ross. So there's a lot of examples there. OTA start Monday. We'll see more, but.
Yeah. Plus you're comparing him against Lenore. I think Lenore's really good. So.
Good. Yeah, I think Lenore's good too. We got to do a film breakdown of him and Talanoa Fanga in the future.
Yes.
Yeah. The way he put hands on him at that clip that keeps going by. Oh yeah, just made him look foolish. I mean, I do think it was a better defensive play than any fault of Austin Watkins, but it was really impressive and did make him look a bit foolish.
Yeah, nothing against Austin Watkins. Lenore's just better than him. Good job, Diamondor Lenore. Looking forward to watching more of him.
Yeah, got him on that one play. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't see anyone get Diamondor all game, all practice. Same with Ambry. Those two look good, but they're supposed to look good. They're the draft picks. There are a lot of tryout guys there, so curious to see what they look like. What these rookies look like when they're interspersed and mingled with the vets. We'll see next week. We'll have much more to talk about then. I think this is going to be a little bit of an abbreviated All49ers roundtable. Again, this is more of a triangular table, so we get straight to the point, knock it out. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week, same time. And I'll be back with Rob later this week. Are we going?
We're on Friday, buddy.
We're on Friday, and then I'm going on again in an hour on Jesse Naylor's channel, Last Second Sports, with him and Guy Haberman, the famous Guy Haberman. It's going to be at the same time as the Warriors game. It'll be like the first half. Basketball games aren't interesting until the last 5 minutes anyway. watch that, and then we'll watch the Warriors game with me later. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, guys.